power for them delivering such a wonderful young man to come into our community and help us find our way. SURJ is something that has grown very near and dear to me. And from the beginning of reading a book from Layla Saad and finding out about SURJ, and I went to look for other people who had read that book because I understood how powerful the knowledge was in that book, and I understood how powerful it would be if white people not only read the book, but did the work of the book. And that's what SURJ here in Las Vegas. They didn't just read it, they're actively engaging and doing work with events just like this. When I remember the SURJ of Las Vegas, it didn't look nearly as full as this. Now, there's two types of fullness. There is fullness from swelling, which is unhealthy. And then there's a fullness of positive growth. And that's where you have people who come into whatever it is with a meaningful purpose to achieve the goals of whatever it is. And that's what I see today as I look out amongst you. Some of you I know, most of you I know actually, but some I don't. But what I see when I look at you is I see a better future. That's what I see. I bought this talking stick because for those who know the tradition, African culture is someone has something to say. And when they have this, the people of the village or the kingdom know to be silent because that person has something important to say. And I felt I had something important to say because you all invited me. But I wanted to share the symbology of this beyond just that there's a person who has something important to say. And it's also why I wore white today. Even though when I got out of the car and had to get the talking stick and reach into the car and dirtied it up, and a little black on it, I said, well, that's fine. Because this is a gathering of where we show the coming together of the two opposite ends of the spectrum, and that is black and white. And that's what it is in this country. And because of this country, unfortunately, that's what it is in this world. This, some people would say, is a seed or an egg. They both kind of mean the same thing, don't they? Well, we all come from one seed. That is the first thing that we all have to acknowledge. Whatever else that is said, whatever else that is done, however we may have seen one another, the bottom line is we all come from one seed. Science has told us that. If you believe in any of the Abrahamic religions and you read any of those holy books, it is also told us that science and religion has come together on that issue, is that we all come from one seed. Though we may not always act on it. And that is unfortunate. Having an opportunity to share one-on-one sessions with people from SURJ like Susanna, Jean, Kathy, Bill, and a few others, it just reminded me that we do come from one seed. But the most important lesson for me is no matter how hard I work, no matter how good I am, no matter what my IQ may be, which is also something built in racism and white supremacy, it doesn't make a difference how high I score. I'm always seen as less than. And that's a horrible feeling. Sometimes women get a chance to feel what I felt all my life of being less than, because we treat our women oftentimes as less than. And less than is never. Because our Creator says we are the greatest thing in existence, other than that Creator, whatever your belief system is. So how can I ever be less than? I often tell the story of growing up, living with my grandmother in Jim Crow South, and how I would leave the home, and my grandmother would say, be careful and don't be another Emmett Till, because I was born a little bit after what happened with Emmett Till. But what happened to him was still, though he was not alive, what happened to him was alive and well in my community. And so oftentimes when us boys would leave home, they would say, don't be another Emmett Till. Not because Emmett Till did anything wrong, but because Emmett Till didn't come back home as he had left. And that's something that stayed with me all of my life, even to this day. And so my son, who's just crossing over 10 years, serving this country of ours, he's been in the combat theater. He's a air commando, it's special forces. And he's been involved in some very unique operations, as I was when I served the great people of America. And I was even on a video call with him once when we say the balloon goes up. In other words, the horn went off and he was activated for his wartime role. And it was to go rescue some Army Rangers. And this was in Africa. And so I'm doing a video chat with him, and the balloon goes up and the horn goes off, and he's throwing on his combat gear. Even though I wore combat gear, it's a little different seeing my son throw his combat gear on with the urgency there. As he threw that on, because I've had experienced that in combat in my own time in service, I knew what he was getting himself into. And there was one side of me as a proud dad that he's carried on the tradition of my family, which is serving the people of this country. But then there was a bit of fear as well. But I knew that he had the training, and he's my son. And he did come back to me safely. But when he came home on vacation, and he said, every time he comes home, he always wants to take my car, because he likes my car. And he usually just wants to ride around Las Vegas, because he loves Las Vegas. And when he's home, when he's in faraway lands, he thinks about me a little bit, but he thinks about coming home to Las Vegas. And so when he came home from Las Vegas after being deployed in what many would think is harm's way, and I was so glad to see it. But I knew that there was going to become a point in that evening or the next where he was going to ask if he could take the car to go for his typical ride. And of course, I said, the keys are in the usual place. And he got in the car and I was smiling when he left out the door. But then as soon as I heard the exhaust of the car fire up, I had a different feeling. My car is a car that's not normally associated with what a black person should drive, especially a young black man. And so that feeling of elation of having my son home who survived combat in a faraway land, fighting for all of us, it quickly went from the smile to something totally opposite. I could feel my heart pound a little harder. My breathing got a little shallow. And then I thought about what my grandmother told me in the Jim Crow South, don't be another Emmett Till. And then I thought, I'm worried if my son will come home. And if he does come home, will he come home injured because of an encounter? Simply because of his color. And because he's driving a car, that's a car that someone of his color and of his age should not be driving. I've been in combat. I know what fear is. I have literally stared death in the face, and I've seen people who I left with not come back. I have seen the destruction of bodies. I've survived all of it. But the one thing that's the most difficult thing for me to deal with in this life is the thought of my son leaving the house in this country. A man who wears the uniform and the flag of this country, whose father wore it, whose uncle wore it, whose great uncle wore it, and every person, male in our lineage, as long as they could fight for the people of this country, has wore this country's uniform. My fear wasn't that he would not return home from combat. My fear That is a fear that many people who look like me have. When we leave Bryce, I prayed for Bryce because he's roughly the same age as my son. And I know he's not from here, but we've adopted him as being one of ours. And if he chooses not to stay here, I want him to return safely to his family. See, that's a fear that many of you may not ever have. And I'm glad that you won't, because it's a fear that no parent should ever have. What I see in SURJ is the beginning of the destruction of a system that has fathers like me and mothers fearful that when their child leaves home in America, that they may not come back. That's what SURJ means to me. That's what you all mean to me. You are a hope, but your work is a promise that the thing that I cannot defeat, the thing that my mother could not defeat, that my grandfather could not defeat, that his grandfather could not defeat, who was a slave, enslaved in this country. Though they were able to purchase land and were able to do a lot of things that this country can't afford an individual. And my mother told me every time I would leave the house right after, don't be another Emmett Till. But she would also tell me, Rob, you can do anything you put your mind to. When I was in school, Rob, you can do anything you put your mind to. And the teachers told me, because of what I looked like, that I would never amount to anything. That my mother wasted an egg on me. That's how I grew up. I don't want other people who look like me to grow up like that. And I truly believe that because of what I see in SURJ, that all of those emotions that I carry with me every day, that I usually try not to show, because there are a few people who may look up to me. When I look at you, when I see Kathy, when I see Jean, and now as I get to know Bill and hear his stories, I think that one thing that no matter how hard I thought about it, no matter how many books I read, no matter how much knowledge I had gained, no matter how many millions of dollars of food that I've shared throughout this Las Vegas community, no matter that I shed blood for this country, who I was fearful would shed the blood of my son when he came back from a country fighting for him. My hope, but the promise, is the work that I see as I pan this room and as I look at each of your faces. America will change because of you. The greatest scourge of this land will change because of SURJ. It may not be today, but before you can get to the end of the journey, you have to take the first step. And SURJ is not just a step. SURJ is a giant leap forward. That's what SURJ means to me.
Wow.